Are climate smart cities possible in the developing world? And for this, for our keynote address, we have the Honorable Senior Minister Punjab, Madam Mariam Aurangzeb. She's been tirelessly working on smog and beyond, and I believe she's just arrived from Lahore for this purpose. So, ma'am, it is my honor. Can I please invite you on stage to deliver your keynote address? Can we please have a round of applause to welcome the Senior Minister, please?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Mikhail. It is an absolute pleasure to be here and to be speaking in the room where I can see lots of experts, lots of scientists, and lots from the environment sector also. And I would also like to welcome all the international delegates who are part of this Dawn Media Group, Breathe Pakistan. I would also like to thank Dawn Group for organizing. I can see that this is not just now a conference, but it is a platform which Dawn Group has provided for not just the government officials, policymakers, scientists, who just can sit here and we can talk to each other, but also we can act together what we discuss here. So thank you, Shakil Saab, for spearheading it, for your leadership, for the Dawn Group leadership, because I see the value. I remember when we started talking about Breathe Pakistan, that was about a year and a half, but unfolding it into such a vibrant and diverse platform for discussion and for consultation, I congratulate you. I bring you today, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, I can see lots of faces, familiar faces from the sector also, a case study from Punjab. And we all know that Punjab and Pakistan, of course, is one of the fastest urbanization we can see in last 30, 40 years. And the way the urbanization has grown, we can see urban sprawl across the country also. And as we know, Punjab is one of the most urbanized provinces well of Pakistan. With, of course, the value of agriculture backbone, the industrial hub, it holds value in terms of urbanization also. And what we've seen, we've discussed problems, we've discussed challenges. As experts, you would know the challenges also. So I will only talk about what we've done in a year and a half, 2 years in Punjab. From moving to a vulnerable province to more of a environment, climate resilience leadership. Our Chief Minister, Mariam Nawaz Sharif, started working on environmental resilience a year and a half ago, 2 years I would say now. So the entire urbanization, and the topic that I would be talking about is unregulated urbanization. I don't see environmental protection and urbanization as an opposing forces. If it's done in a way where we are integrating ecosystems, where we are protecting ecological balance, and where we are integrating all the climate resilient infrastructure policies embedded into the decision making, urbanization, when is inclusive, when is sustainable, and when it is responsible, we can see a urbanization which is climate resilience. And that is what, as a challenge, we took 2 years ago in Punjab. So from a very fragmented sector, as you can see on the screen also, it is just on the environmental climate resilience, but as a fragmented, because it's not just urbanization, it's not just environmental protection, it is more of an ecosystem approach that we have taken in Punjab. So multi-sectoral lens for the first time in decision making, we started off by adding 1% in every PC1 the project document is now spent on climate resilience. Every development project in Punjab now has 1% of its cost embedded in the project document, which has to be spent on climate resilience. So that was the starting point. Then the entire vision of the Chief Minister, as I said, it is more of a integrated approach now. So her vision of e-mobility, urbanization of course means more vehicles on road to begin with. So her e-mobility vision, where she's added about 1,100 buses, electric buses, into the entire mass transit e-mobility vision of hers, and which is now running across the districts and across Punjab. It was not just a pilot in Lahore, but as I speak, the electric buses are running on the roads across Punjab in every district. So this e-mobility was coupled with vehicular testing system. And that also was the first time ever the emission control system, vehicle control system and monitoring was started in Punjab in Lahore. And around 500,000 plus cars are being certified, have been certified by the environmental protection agencies. The visuals that you can see on the screen, of course, talks about the air quality and the climate resilient plan and the vision which was launched for the first time back in 2024 when we took government. So the entire fragmented approach of the climate resilience was consolidated into this climate resilient vision of the Chief Minister, which of course has different sectors, different targets, different milestones, and a monitoring framework is embedded into the vision. So it's not just a vision document, it is a policy document, and then it has sectoral targets embedded into the vision, which is being monitored every quarter in planning and development. Then the Environmental Protection Force was established as a field formation, which is also sectoral. It is not just one sector that we are looking at, it is industry, agriculture, the construction, the fugitive dust sector, the plastic zones, the industrial formation, field formations of Environmental Protection Force. So there are 5 sectors that the Environmental Protection Force looks at, and it was a complete overhauling and reform of the Environmental Protection Authority also. I have with me here in the room, which is DG Environmental Protection Agency Punjab, Imran, who is a leader. He is leading the entire initiative of EPA. I have with me here is Silvat, who's Secretary Environment and Climate Change in Punjab, and they are working with all the other departments, be it agriculture, be it industry, be it transport, education, health, and local government also is part of this entire vision program of the Chief Minister. So as I said, that unregulated urbanization and environmental protection should not be seen as an opposing forces. And that is what the governance tipping point of Chief Minister Punjab is. So every project, every intervention that we under her leadership are taking is all integrated and inclusive. To begin with, again, she has launched this spatial planning and standardization authority in Punjab, which looks after the entire master planning of the districts. And for the first time, it is done in a way that it has the environmental, climate resilient component in it, so that when the master planning is done, it has the environmental resilient infrastructure component embedded into the spatial planning and master planning of cities. And then encroachment is another area that is also part of the spatial planning, master planning of cities that we have launched in Punjab under the Chief Minister's Spatial Planning Authority. A very active industrial relocation from the residential area is another area that we have launched in Punjab. And as you must have seen that in Faisalabad, around 38 so far industrial units are moving away from the residential and interior city zone to a industrial state that we have provided to them. The next is Lahore, and then we have moved around more than 40 tanneries from Sialkot city to an adjacent area which was also allocated by the government. and which was allocated 18 years back, and not a single tannery was moved to that area. So as I speak to you, around more than 40 tanneries have been moved to a designated area with a complete environmental impact assessments and environmental SOPs. Then again in Kasur is another tannery zone that we have identified, and under the Chief Minister's Economic Transformation Plan, where city transformation planning is also part of it. The tannery zones and environmental protection in terms of waste treatment plants, in terms of drainage, in terms of sewage of the industrial states, is also part of the Chief Minister's economic planning. Then every road, more than 30,000 roads have been constructed over the last 2 years, and every roadside has, again, as I said, has a percentage of the cost as plantation along the sides of the roads in last 2 years. So no road in Punjab can be constructed without the tree cover alongside the road. So that's something we have worked on. Air quality is a priority area in, as we all know, smog was something that paralyzed Punjab in winter season. And what we worked over 2 years has started showing results. So I think, I'm not saying that we've resolved the entire climate problem of Punjab, but we have started, and we have started in a way that it is integrated, it is inclusive, and it takes care of every component of climate resilience when it comes to sustainability of growth. And we believe that no city can prosper if it can't breathe. So that's our starting point when we started working on all of this. So the air quality, there was no air quality monitor in Punjab when we started off, and everything was calculated by international websites, and during the winter season only, there was no data to begin with. Only anecdotal data was shared and was also reported. But now we have around 59 air quality monitors that are installed, and they just not calculate data, but also do predictable modeling, AI generative, all digital. You can also see this Punjab Climate Watch that is being installed. It's a live dashboard of all the industrial units, of all the brick kilns, of all the stubble burning. And across Punjab, they monitor the industry, and the live dashboard then alerts the field formation, and then the entire system responds to it. So it's not a reactive approach to the climate problem or the environmental problem or the air quality problem. It is more of a responsive approach where we have taken all the stakeholders together. So all the industrial units, more than 9,000 industrial units, have now environmental control systems installed. That is a camera that, if there's a black smoke emitting from the chimneys, this is all monitored and is part of our Climate Watch dashboard where we monitor the data. All the brick kilns in Punjab are QR coded. They have a specific exclusive QR code on their brick kiln, which then again is linked to our Climate Watch dashboard, which which not just collects data, not just monitors it, but also there's a complete system that responds to it, and how to make it climate resilient, environmental resilience. Also, there's a complete mechanism placed there. Then, you must have heard Suthra Punjab is the largest solid waste management program of the Chief Minister Mariam Nawaz, which runs across the length and breadth of Punjab province. It's a cleanliness program, but as urbanization increases, and it's not just in urban parts of Punjab, it's also for the first time rural parts of Punjab where the Suthra Punjab is working. It's solid waste management, and then we are now moving from just not the collection of waste, but waste to value as well with our private sector. Drainage rehabilitation, of course, the industrialization in district capitals of Punjab, and then also in the residential areas. The drainage is in the fresh water, and the drain rehabilitation, Chief Minister program, we have selected about 5 drains across Punjab, and we are rehabilitating it. We are working with the private sector, the industries along those drains, who are then now working with us for the entire rehabilitation program of those drainages. So lots of relocation will be happening in next 3 months. We are replacing, under the Punjab Clean Air Program, we are replacing the two-wheelers and three-wheelers as pilot from Lahore as our smog mitigation plan. We have a smog mitigation resilient plan, which again has monitoring and evaluation embedded into it, targets and milestones also. And with all what we've done in a year and a half, 2 years, about 35% of PMT 2.5, according to the international website, we have reduced over last a year and a half. So whatever we are doing, it seems to be working, seems to be having an impact, but a lot needs to be done, of course, in other parts, also other areas as well, other sectors also. The stubble burning, there were about 300 super seeders when we started off, and they were only available to the farmers who could afford it. The Chief Minister started a subsidy program for super seeder, and as I speak to you, 6,000 super seeders are working in the fields of Punjab, which has really, really impacted and reduced the stubble burning in this winter season when it was wheat sowing and rice harvesting season. So this is a few of the videos that you can see of the plantation, where we, of course, involve the students, the schools, the private sector. We're doing lots and lots of research also, which comes to us from other parts of the world, and we test them. We invited the universities also to have our research programs augmented. The smog guns that you see on the roads of Lahore, and then we are expanding it to other parts of Punjab also. The UAT in Lahore has made a smog gun, which is indigenous technology, and this is how we are augmenting our research into different equipments. We're also trying the air quality monitor that we have installed now, and who, as I said, monitors the entire live dashboard and the air quality indexes and the data. The climate observatory is something that we are coming up. The project has started. It will be a data hub of all the land use planning, the flood plans, the disaster planning, and the environmental quality indexes and the air quality as well. That climate observatory will be the region's biggest and the largest data repository and the hub, which is placed in Lahore, but will have satellite offices across Punjab, and we will of course share data with organizations like NDMA, so on and so forth. All the universities, research departments will be linked to these climate observatory, and the scientists and the experts will also be part of that climate observatory that we of course have started, and the project will be completed in a year and a half, 2 years, inshallah, from now. We've identified low emission, we've done zonifications of the cities of Punjab, and the zones, low emission zones we have identified, and we are trying to protect them with our policies, with interventions that I've just spoken about. And so those zones will be low emission zones declared, as we have declared no plastic zones across Punjab as well, where environmental protection with the district administration is working very, very aggressively, and they're working on no plastic. We've launched this campaign of no plastic use in Punjab when we came in government, assumed office. But now we're working with the recycling companies also, where the confiscated plastic is being used in making furniture for schools and parks. So that's a big initiative. We've linked the private economy to this campaign also. These are few things. These are the brick kilns, as you see on the screens. They are all QR coded, and the live feed of, and we issue this video every morning of all the brick kilns that are running in Punjab. Is a strict monitoring being done on all these brick kilns, environmental control systems, the fields and the farms of Punjab through technology. All this force that you see, the environmental protection force, have drones. They have the monitors that they have, the technology, the cameras installed, everything is digital. There's less and less human intervention. All the equipments, you saw that what we inherited as environmental protection force, and what now the forces, I can say with great confidence that it is one of the best environmental protection force in the world, and how they are working. So we included the petrol, the fuel testing in our mandate also, the water testing in our mandate as well of the Environmental Protection Force. So there's no area that we have left behind when it comes to environmental protection, environmental monitoring and implementation in different sectors across Punjab. It's a very holistic, comprehensive, inclusive program that the Chief Minister is running, and there's a zero tolerance. In whenever there is a violator, we've come up with a first polluters pay principle, and we've done that with our industry, with our chambers. So we've made them partners in this entire initiative that we are, taking in Punjab at the moment. I spoke about the Spatial Development Authority and their master planning. Under the Murray Development Program, for the first time, we made master plan of Murray, first time ever. And then we also made the first ever bylaws for Murray because of the depletion of forest cover area, as we all know. So the entire construction is now a part of our development plan for Murray. And Mr. Umar, who's heading the urban unit and it's the industry secretary, he's really helped us in mapping the urban unit, in mapping the entire industry. And as an industry secretary, Umar has really helped the environment department for industrial mapping in residential areas. And that's what we are really relocating in next coming few months this year. We will inshallah relocate and replace the industrial zones from the residential zones of Punjab. Then, as I said, the data, we can't govern what we can't measure, as they say. So data is our main work that we have done over the last 2 years. So we have mapped the entire industry, we have mapped the sectors, we have data now available with us, and that is being used in our spatial planning and a standardization authority also when they're planning these master plans for city. So this is how we have really embarked upon this journey under the leadership of the Chief Minister. There's a Green School program coming up, which is again with the schools. There's a solid waste program that we have launched in schools across Punjab and across schools of Punjab, public schools and private schools as well. This is the Environmental Protection Force that you can see on screen. This is the vision that I was talking about, which the Chief Minister launched, the climate vision of Punjab. The health impacts. The Health Ministry is working, both the primary, the preventive and the secondary health department working with us again on the data. 60,000 health workers have been hired to go door to door that are helping us in terms of disease identifications, and specifically for smog and for air quality and environmental related diseases. They are identifying and mapping for us to react in terms of our, that's coming from the health department. So I think when we talk about unregulated urbanization, we talk about all these sectors. Nothing can work if it is in isolation. Nothing will work if one component is left behind. It has to be inclusive, as I said, and that is what we are doing. We're working with the environmental sector organizations. We're working with the legislative lawyers as well, because we are, have the oversight as well of how we can really work by augmenting our existing laws. We have best policies, we have best legislations. It is now time to, and we have best experts also. I think in Pakistan, it is just time to act, bring them together, and that's what we did in Punjab and made it a case study for the world also. Lots of other countries, of course, have approached us. The way we have worked on air quality, we are working on the different projects and different things that we have done over last. We have registered lots of projects for carbon credit for the first time also. That is, I don't know if you are familiar with Mahmood Booty project that we are doing for methane extract. That's also registered for the climate credit program from Pakistan as well. This is our Chief Minister that you can see on the screen for all the international delegates. This is the decline of Lahore from 1st, 3rd to 13th over this smog period. This is what we inherited, as I was talking about, the before Environmental Protection Force, and this is now we have a modern, digital, electric, and all AI-driven environmental protection force that runs across Punjab now. And we are introducing this environmental protection force in 10 districts hotspot for air quality. We are introducing it this year. These are the sectoral environmental protection force that I was talking about. Different sector has, this is a mobile air quality monitors, and these are where they can go into residential areas. The smaller vehicles is something that we have done. So this is from Punjab, and I would request and invite all of you, all the experts who are visiting from abroad, please do visit Lahore, do visit Punjab. We have lots to tell and lots to show also, and the direction, the policy, the intention is in the right direction, and that's why I think it is showing results. And in next 2-3 years, inshallah, we think that we will be living in a safer, more environment resilient, more climate resilient province, and where the urbanization can coexist with environmental, ecological balance that we are looking forward. And you are welcome to see all these facilities. I invite you to our first ever LEED certified gold standard green building that we have built in Lahore also, where this Punjab Climate Watch dashboard is housed. जितने लोग यहाँ बैठे हैं from the academia, the students I can see here also, आप लोग सब ज़रूर आएं. It can be a good platform for your research projects also, because that's how we are including and involving and engaging the student body. When I went for this degree Environment and Climate Change back in 2002 and 3, there was hardly any appetite or demand for environment degrees and students going abroad. But now I'm so happy that our national universities, our provincial universities, and the students, we have good student body, researchers, experts, young experts that we have engaged in our Climate Watch and in all these interventions, because I think every intervention in every sector is a research project in itself. Then lastly, Punjab Socio-Economic Registry is something that is data collection, the registry hub that the Chief Minister, because data was one thing that we really struggled with when we started off. So this Punjab Socio-Economic Registry also maps the demographics of the population in both the urban sector and the rural sector, where every household is counted and no one is left behind. So that's one data hub that will work and that will really help in in policy making and decisions. And then there's something that we have developed called Punjab One Map, where every asset of Punjab government, and which is on the surface, on land and under the surface, every asset is mapped, digitized, and then we use it for our urban planning and for our rural transformation and reform projects that the Chief Minister has had. Tourism, massive work and expansion in terms of ecotourism in Punjab, again under the leadership of Chief Minister Punjab. So I invite you in the end to please come to Punjab and see all these interventions with us and experience them, and how see that a environmental vulnerability can be changed into climate resilience leadership. And that's how we are doing it. It's a long journey, but all of us acting together can really make a difference. Thank you very much. And thank you once again to all the international delegates who are part of this Breathe Pakistan conference, which started off as an environmental initiative, has become where the international experts can exchange ideas with our local partners. Thank you, Shakil Sir, once again for your leadership. Thank you, Dawn Group, for giving this platform for everyone to come together and act together. Thank you, everyone.
A big thank you to the Senior Minister. It's so heartening to see all the efforts on the ground, such a delivery-focused approach by the Senior Minister and the shared vision of our Honorable Chief Minister in Punjab. And of course, One cannot deny the efforts of the Secretary and the Director General in ensuring transparency, accountability, and a technology-abled environment for a greener Punjab, inshallah. So with that, I'd like to move on to our other keynote speakers. I'd like to first invite Mr. Tariq Alexander Kesser, the founder and principal architect of TAQ Associates, and Ms. Miri Atala, the head of adaptation and resilience at the United Nations Environment Program. Please come up on stage. If I could request Mr. Tariq to start with his remarks, and Mr. Tala will follow. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I have a green folder. I have a black folder. I have no gray folders. Let the Honorable Minister depart. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dawn Media, for this. And thank you so much for your team, for this amazing team of young people that you have assembled out here. And I think they need a hand. Discourse and gatherings like these are valuable. There's no doubt about it. They're critical. And we have in this room incredible thinkers and professionals, people who respect this earth, our earth. All of us do what we can to make a difference. And I'm honored to be here amongst all of you. So thank you. We all stand witness to the damage our species is doing to our planet. There is reason enough for dissent, loud dissent. If a single message was clear yesterday, it is, the situation is dark. But I believe it is not bleak, because all is still not lost. Backwinding the Anthropocene to the Holocene is not an option. Containing global temperatures to 1.5 degrees is, well, it's for bringing together luminaries and people and thinking and thinkers of this caliber. So, I'm furious about wars. I'm angry about our greed. I'm furious about wars. I'm angry about our greed and abuse of fossil fuels. Profoundly sad about the human pain felt in cities, habitations, homes. All of our homes. I also cry when a tree is cut. Damage, discord, not harmony with nature seems to be the norm, especially in our urban environment. Our cities are out of control. Everything seems to be a free-for-all. Regulated development is required, but it must be implemented effectively. And effective administration is an incredible challenge. We are witness to that in all aspects of our life. How do you administer a city that has multiple adjacent and independent municipalities? I'm talking about my hometown, Karachi, and many other locations and cities in this country. Good laws exist. They still exist because they change. But new ones are needed, ones that are accepted by all. These will have to take into consideration the needs of people and the constraints of nature. Sensitivity to sociology and science is paramount. Let me overstate that. The future cannot exist in quality without the sensitivity to human needs and to the constraints, physical constraints of science. However, we have educated ourselves into silos, separating ecology from engineering and science from humanities. Philosophy is put aside for entrepreneurship. And please note, I work with entrepreneurs. I have spent a lifetime doing that in my architectural practice. But without philosophy and the quality of abstract, esoteric thinking and questioning, entrepreneurship is limited. But why is philosophy put aside for entrepreneurship? I ask myself that question many times, and I ask all of you the same question. It needs to be considered, deliberated on, and implemented. This has resulted in a fragmented thinking in a world today that requires a holistic, integrated, and deeply sensitive understanding of issues. But we work in specializations with pressure to get the job delivered and the bottom line maximized. It's a narrow focus. Our lives are lived in a narrow focus and in a small subset of a small silo. The critically needed long-term wide view often recedes into the background. That is sad. Our cities have problems with planning, zoning, order. Topping the list is untreated effluent discharge and solid waste. All of our cities have a problem with effluent discharge. There's exceptional work being done in some of our cities on solid waste. Exceptional. And I have to praise that. But so much still drains directly into the sea, river, or the Nala, not into sewage treatment plants, STPs, or into solid waste facilities. Drainage systems get clogged or built upon, streets flood, sewage-rich waters stagnate and cause atrophic bacterial and algal blooms. Disease vectors spread. It's only common sense. Feces-contaminated subsoil water is often used for bathing and drinking. Nothing new. Is it an acceptable normal? Drinking water is ostensibly safe when it's bottled and sold at massive profit. It's a question that needs serious consideration. Bottled water from RO plants results in concentrated waste. We know that. Where does it go? Often it is pumped back into its source aquifer. Again, another question. Our communities have been divided into them that cannot afford to drink clean water and those that can. Our cities, our lives suffer from deep, deep inequity. And I leave this with an unanswered question. Will we put value on our izzat-e-nafs? Will we look at our zamir, to look at the future for our progeny and our community and our country and our respect, self-respect? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kessa, for a reality check on some of the mistakes we've been making, and a special thank you to mentioning Karachi, because I think we've not had a lot of talk of the city so far in this conference. I'd now like to invite Ms. Miri Atala, the head of adaptation and resilience at the United Nations Environment Program, to come up and deliver her keynote.
Thank you very much, and well, good afternoon. I think now it's 12 sharp. My name is Mireya Atala, and I would like to start first because I've been asked a couple of times where I'm from. I'm Lebanese, and I would really, really like to remove my UN hat, wear my national hat, and convey to the people of Pakistan and the government of Pakistan the appreciation for taking on the huge responsibility of brokering the negotiations on truce and peace. Now, wearing my UN hat back again, I will try to be as short as possible. So, we were asked to really reflect in our keynote speeches around the whole issue of cities, but also with, related to the speed of urbanization in developing countries, and whether there's a possibility for cities to be smart in that context of rapid urbanization. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I will start with maybe a couple of reflections and data points that are global, but that are also very relevant for Pakistan's context. First is that everywhere around the world, urban growth is accelerating. And for us, from our point of view, that is an opportunity, because we know that 50% of the built environment has not yet been constructed. So whether it's for the has not yet been constructed. So whether it's for the private sector, whether it's for governments, whether it's for local municipalities, there is an opportunity of leapfrogging there. Second is that local impacts, it's been repeated and said multiple times, that climate impacts are local and unequal. There is an opportunity for addressing inequity and injustice in that process of building and developing new urban centers, and of nurturing local and indigenous solutions, as has been mentioned a couple of times as well. And lastly, I really need to bring I don't know that I need to bring the attention of any Pakistani to the fact that heat is the deadliest climate risk. World Environment Day on June 5th is going to be dedicated to climate change for the first time in 14 years. One of our themes is Beat the Heat, and we have 50 cities around the world that will be stress testing how they cope with 50 degrees. Some of them are doing a simulation because 50 degrees will never happen. Extreme heat in Glasgow, for example, is triggered at 28 degrees. In Pakistan, we have the cities of Turbat, Lahore, and Karachi that have come forward to join that exercise. And when you hear the mayor of Turbat talk about extreme heat, about the real feel of 50 degrees on your skin, on your breath, on the silence that grabs the city because everything stops looking for shade, including animals. You don't hear an insect. That is the real feel and the reality and the lived experience of extreme heat. And this is one of the deadliest climate impacts. It kills around 500,000 people around the world. And we estimate that this is an underestimate because not a lot of deaths or work breaks are reported, for example, as being related to extreme heat. It's strokes, it's kidney failure, it's heart failure, but in many cases they are correlated and caused by extreme heat conditions. Can we go to the last slide, please? Last one. Next one. Thank you very much. No, I'm joking. This is not the end of my intervention, but I'm dropping my slides here to refocus maybe on a couple of messages that I would like to convey. And that you will find, I think, with Dawn Media putting up the slides on the conference website. First, as we've heard from the Minister of Environment of Lahore, cities are where action happens, and this is where they come together. The artificial divide that we heard about adaptation and mitigation, but also about pollution, whether it's waste or air pollution or nature, cities is where those silos break, where action needs to happen together and where there's a possibility for taking holistic approaches. So it's a challenge for us as technical people on climate to start addressing those things holistically. And I think we see this materialize really in building codes. You don't want to have a building code for floods, another one for energy efficiency, another one for thermal comfort, another one for fire safety, another one for electrical compliance. You want to have a single building code. So here there are opportunities that cities are challenging us with. The second thing is that there's a huge opportunity to leapfrog, and to leapfrog not only through south-south and north-south exchanges, but also through innovation, creativity, and indigenous solutions. The challenge here is that there's an opportunity to leapfrog, but we're challenged by speed. And that speed is correlated to population increase, to population migration in urban centers, and also the speed at which urban settlements are being developed. So we need to nurture those solutions that are applicable, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we might fail, that we might have to retrofit, and that we might have to adjust. So that flexibility in approaches is really key. And this is where that tension of innovation versus scale also hits the finance side of things. For those of you who were yesterday at the finance session, you know, there's quite a bit of challenges. You need to design the projects, you need to prove attribution, you need to have strong KPIs, you need to go through due diligence, and during that time, things are happening on the ground. And whatever time we are wasting on the perfect design is an opportunity that we are missing on the imperfect but incremental improvement. Second is the political economy, and here you'll allow me to be a little bit irreverent or maybe provocative. What we've done a state of finance for nature-based solutions in cities report. And what we see is that very oftentimes, again, it's not the lack of funding, but it's the accessibility of funding. And in the context of urban settings and urban environments, we see three things happening. First is that cities are not directly engaging with financiers. It's always through the Ministry of Finance or the federal government. By a barrier from the Ministry of Finance, who doesn't want to give a letter of no objection for an additional loan because it needs to manage the overall national or federal indebtedness. So there's a curtailed opportunity there. Second is a political one. Very often times, what we see around the world is that you have very powerful mayors of cities that are driving change, driving reform, driving investment, driving opportunities that are from a political opposition party. And they are often, again, curtailed by this political dynamics and by the political economy. And third is that city and subnational governments cannot afford to invest in a biodiversity plan, a nature plan, a climate plan, a wastewater management plan, a water access plan, a urbanization plan, so on and so forth. So their technical capacity is curtailed, and very often they are not the recipient of technical assistance or of targeted technical assistance. And that is a balance that we need to change. So in that drive to encourage coherence, there is a very important role for national governments and entities like ours, like the UN, to drive coherence, to enable subnational governments and cities through that technical assistance, but also through a full implementation of the subsidiarity principle. Some things are better addressed at the local level, other things are better addressed at the national level or federal level, and that space really needs to be navigated in a way that essentially enables rapid action. And that we are seeing really some changes happening around the world, in particular because climate solutions are becoming cheap, are becoming accessible, and are delivering beyond climate. Climate solutions are delivering mobility, are delivering access to energy, are delivering access to water. That are some of the key requirements that urban, like mayors and urban leaders, are confronted to because they see their citizens on a daily basis. And lastly, I would like to finish with a request. May I ask all of you to close your eyes? Imagine yourself in a hamster. No, your eyes are still open. You're cheating. Imagine yourself in a hamster wheel and running to get that hamster wheel spinning. But the hamster wheel is getting smaller and smaller, tighter and tighter. This is what's happening with us with climate change. The hamster wheel is closing down on us because we are still in a very strong response and recovery approach. We still consider climate impacts as climate shocks. Now I want you to break out of that hamster wheel. I want you to think out of the box. And I want you to think how we transform realities instead of coping with future climate shocks. They are current, they are real, they are happening now, and sometimes they may need us to break out of that cage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tala. I think you've used the one word that I think is the most relevant to Pakistan's problem, silos, and I think we can't get over them. Thank you to both speakers for being here. Can I please request a huge round of applause for their time and effort here today? We'll be moving on to our panel session now. The panel session is going to be moderated by Mr. Dawar Hamid Butt, an environment and climate advisor on multiple fronts. He's also wearing a lot of green today in commemoration of the to-be Defense Day of ours maybe in the future. I have 5 guests with him. Mr. Jawad Ali Khan, who's the Senior Advisor and Program Manager at UN Habitat Pakistan. Can I please ask the guests to please also come on stage? Mr. Mohammad Umar Masood, the CEO of the Urban Unit, and I also believe he's the Secretary Industries now. Ms. Sumaira Izhar, Recovery and Durable Solutions Advisor at IOM Pakistan. Mr. Farooq Raza, Marketing, Communications and People at Capital Smart Motors. And Dr. Numan Ahmed, the Pro Vice Chancellor at NED University of Engineering. Dawar, I'll hand it over to you.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to the Dawn team, thank you to the organizers, thank you to our guests today. The topic we're going to speak about is actually a continuation of the remarks that we've been thinking and hearing. We saw how the senior minister commented on the fact that we do not have enough evidence and information to actually make urban policy. And this is only now we're seeing the efforts of various provincial governments, the federal government, coming together to gather that data. Then we heard Tariq as well commenting on how the nature of climate change or the challenge of climate change, limiting warming to 1.5 degrees, is itself looking at various types of development activities or the type of implementation you do on ground, and that's where we also lack. And finally, Mire also commented that while we have these challenges, this is an opportunity to leapfrog as well. And this is perhaps where we begin our discussion. We have Javed Saab, who is the head of UN Habitat in Pakistan. And I think we can begin the discussion over here that, given that all these risks, we keep on talking about urban heat, flood risk, we keep on talking about air pollution. From a purely sustainable development lens, what do you feel is the gap that exists in Pakistan and also similar developing countries throughout South Asia? And where is the first step that we need to take to really take this challenge head on?
It's a great pleasure, and I'd like to thank Dawn Media Group, organizers of this very important conference and debating this very important issue. So actually, if we see deeply into our city's context, the phenomena of climate change is becoming recently more and more intense and erratic, as well as the frequency and intensity is varying very quickly and rising up, both in terms of rainfall or temperature. So our cities did not, when it was over the historical period, we did not experience that kind of phenomena. So our cities were not built keeping in mind the kind of changes that it is happening now. So it is very much evident in all of our cities. But I am really shocked by seeing the kind of things that are still happening and missing. The recent phenomena that I see in Islamabad, E7 and E11 and all those areas, when during one flood, the and the cars flying on the road started floating on the in the flood water. So this is some kind of ill planning. Similarly, what happened very recently in Lahore, the Ravi Riverfront housing scheme development. It was the whole housing societies, a couple of housing societies got drawn into the water. So this is the real root cause of the challenges. The urban heat island phenomena in Karachi, it's becoming a city of brick and mortar, so densely populated and so intensely built that it is the heat is trapped into the downtown, into the cities, and it takes fatal consequences, and lot of deaths have occurred even before, and now recently it is still I have read that this pattern is still there. So these are the kind of fault of planning which is triggered by the impact of climate change more and more intense. If I just quote one example, that I was in the Wabda guest house in Lahore, which is who are the agency responsible for managing water all over the country, and my driver had to pull his trouser up to the knee to go and get the car because it was so much flooded. I asked those engineers, senior engineers, that you are responsible for managing the water in the entire country, but why in your own guest house it is like that? He said that it used to clear out very quickly, but now it takes 8 hours to clear out. So just imagine that these kind of phenomena, which is real and we are experiencing, we need to wake up. What we have done is that we have uh, uh, mm, ruthlessly used the land and abused the land use, and we are not protecting the natural uh, mm, drainage pattern or drainage system. So our planners have to be very conscious and design the infrastructure keeping in mind the challenges that we are facing. So it has to be for urban heat island phenomena. You have to have more greeneries. You have to have more open spaces, so that we and grow more and more trees, so that carbon sink, it can absorb the heat and the temperature can become little cooler. Similarly, conscious planning, right of way actually is very, very important for any development. If along these streams, or if you go very close to these streams and disturb the natural ecosystem, then certainly when the time comes, the natural drainage pattern will fail to deliver, will fail to respond. So these kind of faults that we need to, like in Lahore, we have to be really conscious. Masood will vouch for it. I don't know that our planners have to be conscious and must study the challenge and build necessary safety zones. So these are good uh, um, preventive measures that need to be put in place to avoid these kind of consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Javed. So I think that's a very useful inroad to my question to Dr. Umar, that, the question of evidence, and now there's this three-problem, I think three-tier problem that we're facing. Is it in the planning process? If it's in the planning process, is it being monitored? If it's in the planning process, it's being monitored, is the plan still enough for the changing climate? The example that a guest house built 30 years ago and the drainage around it might not be capable of handling the flood now, while it was, suitable at the time it was built. So from the evidence you're gathering at the urban unit, from the evidence that the Punjab government has access to, what do you see where the key hindrances are, and what can be done to incorporate it in the proper both urban planning and at the project level as well?
That's a really long question. And I have 5 minutes to answer it, but I'll be very frank and honest, because it's the Dawn Media Conference and they put me on the newspaper for the second year, and I receive so many phone calls on the day that my picture comes in Dawn. So thank you so very much, Dawn, for that. We have to realize that in this country, because of increased urbanization and because of land prices going up in major cities and even in intermediate cities, by the way, you have to admit to the fact that now there is a very strong political economy of urban planning. We have not talked about it, we do not like to talk about it, but we have to admit this fact that there is a political economy of urban planning. And the only way sort of to address this issue is to have that hardcore evidence through which you can make a judgment which is based on knowledge, which is based on skills, rather than which is being driven by different interests in this political economy of urban planning. And Dawa, you are right. We do have data, we do have evidence, but if you take the example of the Wabda building, which got flooded, the Wabda building was constructed 30 years ago or 20 years ago. At that time, it was not being flooded. What happens around the Wabda building is what Wabda cannot control. What happens around my grandmother's house is what I cannot control. And that is something which has to do with enforcement. And that enforcement, I really believe, has to come from the local government system. And unfortunately, in this country, I think we have had a very checkered history as far as city leadership is concerned and city governments have been concerned. So till the time we make this pledge that city governments have to come into place and have to be truly empowered, these issues of previous housing schemes getting flooded or people building along the floodplains would always be there, because for a provincial government or for a federal government it is very difficult to have that type of a micro insight into a population of say about 125 million, which is the population of Punjab. About 45% of it is urbanized, large cities, intermediate cities and towns. So it is very difficult for any secretary, say for housing and urban development, or a secretary local government, a provincial one, to have that particular insight. So the first thing is obviously data, number one. But data alone is not enough. And right now what we are experiencing all over Pakistan is because of this advent of technology, is because of this proliferation of GIS, now coupled with artificial intelligence. It is like drinking through a fire hydrant. There is so much data coming to us that we as the government and we professionals within the government are finding it hard to analyze, to decipher it, and then put it into form of information which is relevant for policy making. So the map is not enough. The map has to have a story behind it. The map has to have certain actions attached to it. The map has to have a relevance to policy. And for that, what we believe is that simply retaining data within the government perhaps would not be sufficient. It would take a long time for the government to build its capacity to do that type of data and data analysis work. And perhaps the governments are not even structured like that. And I think time has come for organizations like the Urban Unit, for example, Government of Punjab, to start sharing whatever data it has and to bring it into public realm. It was made out of taxpayers' money. It is a public good and it has to be brought forward. Unless that is done, the issue, this theory of change that we always have in our mind, that evidence would be brought forward and that evidence would translate into policy, it's not as linear as that, Dawa. What is really going to happen is that evidence has to be brought forward and it has to be made available to all those stakeholders which have a vested interest in that city, and I'm talking about the citizens of the city. Our recent experience with the climate action plan, which we did as a consultant for the city of Karachi, was a very, very pleasant one, in which we found the mayor of Karachi and its entire administration really engaging with us. So when you have a professional organization, technology, data, and a motivated city government doing this stuff, then you can actually come up with planning documents and policies which have relevance. And if it is a good planning document and if it is a good policy document to start with, that would definitely have a much more robust impact as far as our traditional story about political pressures and the political economy of urban planning is concerned. Because we have been unable to do a good job at that. Nature abhors a vacuum, and that's why you have so many vested interests, and this entire sort of the story of the urban landscape in Pakistan for the last 25, 35 years is not a pleasant one. It is on the fringes of that shady area that we do not like to dwell on. But this is the true fact. And I think, conferences like Dawn and what I have just, spoken is that evidence alone is not going to do the trick. Data alone is not going to do the trick. You need to have those institutions which are going to transmit it all the way to policy. And when it comes to data, by the way, now what we have started building a data infrastructure. Perhaps we as participants do not realize, but every subsequent Dawn conference, I can tell you from this point onward, will be more data intensive, because there is much more data to be shared and to be analyzed. But to build that data infrastructure, It's like a road, it's like an asset, it's like a public good. This is what the future role of the government has to be. And the second job of the government has to be is to make that data openly available, so there is more accountability of those local government organizations and of all those agencies which are responsible for the delivery of municipal services and having that urban habitat that we always dream of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Umar. I think two things that we've discussed right now are related to physical impacts of climate change, and the evidence shows us how bad or worsening those physical impacts are. But one thing that goes along with them is the impact on the humans themselves, the people living in our communities, people living in the rural areas. And we've seen as an outcome of natural disasters and the floods, even when the 2005 earthquake happened, that immediately after a disaster, a lot of our communities choose to move to cities. And this is a repeated cycle that we see, that climate change is getting worse. More communities prefer cities because cities have, they come up with certain safety nets. You have access to healthcare, you have access to resources, even though if they live in a poor housing, they still are managing to have access to education, healthcare, electricity. And this is where I think the role of you and IOM, especially in the context of Pakistan, is very important. The Sindh floods that we saw in 2022 drove a lot of the population towards urban area. And urban areas, as we have heard, have their own challenges. And this is a potential double jeopardy here, that people see this safety net, they come here, but the cities are not able to accommodate. This is where I would like to ask Sumaira as well to jump in, that based on the experience, what is the snapshot? How many people are actually moving to cities as a result of these climate disasters? And how are we preparing the cities? Are we prepared? Is it going to a planning process as well? Can we accommodate more and more people? And what is the role of mid-tier cities here then?
Thank you, Davar, for the question. Before that, I would like to thank Dawn Media for this wonderful event and an opportunity for bringing in multidimensional discussions about the topic of climate change and also related to urbanization. So I'll start with a very critical point that urbanization in Pakistan is not planned. It's basically absorbed. And initially, urbanization main factor was mainly the opportunity, availability of opportunities and jobs. But now it's changing from the climate shock induced and the displacement. So as my colleague Mere has already shown that by 2050, we are expecting that around 68% people are expected to be moving towards cities. And around the 216 million people will be internally migrating in that area due to the climate change. So in Pakistan, this is already very visible that around more than 13 million people are the internal migrants, and they're migrating because of the climate shocks or the issues related to livelihood. Livelihoods, security and other things. You mentioned about 2022 flood, and that's very correct that around 33 million people got affected, 8 million people got displaced, and those displaced are either living in urban areas or peri-urban areas, and they're not willing, most of them are not willing to go back to their areas of origin. So people, when now we all need to realize that the people movement is not only for getting better jobs or better education opportunities, it's more related to distress. And when they're moving because of the reason that these disasters are affecting or destroying their assets and investments. So the floods are destroying the homes, the availability of safe water and other factors. The livelihoods are being impacted by desertification, the drought. So this is what in IOM we call it a climate mobility. But from our perspective, we see that climate mobility concept is not being conceptualized in Pakistan completely as a climate subject. So it's being dealt as a humanitarian or development issue, which is not being taken as a core climate adaptation issue at the moment. So IOM has a flagship program which is around the displacement tracking matrix. We do a lot of data collection, and there we we very recently completed a climate vulnerability assessment, and we've seen that there are different dynamics towards the movement. So many people, they move to cities and they don't want to return, but sometimes the movements are within the localized areas like the same union council or district. So this is very important phenomena to understand. The fast onset disasters like floods happening, so people try to move far away towards the cities. When there are slow onset disasters like drought, like desertification, so people try to move within their within the areas where they are, but within the union councils or within the district where they have better opportunities. So this is very critical element to understand. If the cities keep on absorbing more and more people, so they already available fragile infrastructure or the social services will get more burdened, as already mentioned by Javed Saab and Umar Saab, that this is what is happening at the moment. More and more people are coming in, and they do not, when they come because of distress, they go and they get settled where they can. They do not have an opportunity to make a decision for themselves where they should be settling. So one of the biggest example is Karachi city's Orangi and Liari belts, where in people who are displaced due to floods, they are living in the Liari water channel, which is a drainage channel, and every year they get flooded. Every year they need to be removed from there, and they have to relocate. So this is a cyclic process now. Climate shock happens, people move, then they go back to there, and their vulnerabilities get or increasing day by day. So we have to think about, if people still move in the localized locations, so we can work in those localized locations to have better and resilient shelters, housing, and settlement, so that they are staying in their origins. And we have tested it as an IOM. We've tested this in Pakistan and also in Somalia. So in Pakistan, we've seen, working in Sindh and Balochistan, we've seen that if we work with communities and we build the resilience of communities, then they are the migration from rural areas to urban areas is reduced. And in Somalia, we did the similar kind of model, but we worked with different UN agencies and the government. There, we've collected data on migration, and we collected the data of the reasons why people chose to relocate it, and then why they do not want to go back to their areas of origin. So this data can guide our planning processes. So coming to your question on the how we can sustain this urbanization thing. So basically, now the governments need to think about that it has to be more dynamic kind of dynamic kind of planning, because at the moment our planning is only based on the population growth. It's not incorporating the population movement in it. So the factor of population movement is very important. We can think about, I mean, we know the trends, we can see that how people are moving every year or every disaster, like you mentioned about earthquake, then the flood, then drought. So these factors could be brought into the planning phase, and the cities can develop the peri-urban areas or the smaller cities in that way, that they can buffer the increasing urbanization, which is also an alarming phenomena. Urbanization is inevitable, we cannot avoid it. Migration is inevitable, we cannot stop that at all. Migration will happen due to any reason, but at least we can plan for it to accommodate in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumaira. I think it's very rightly pointed out that urbanization is inevitable. The health impact we will continue to face. One of the biggest things, and I think the senior minister discussed it in detail, Dr. Umar also knows about it, that the biggest source of air pollution, for example, in our cities is transport sector. And transport is everything, all of us use it, our logistics, our food chain, value chain, everything depends on it. And this is something I want to ask Farooq, that, his role as a private sector leader who is taking this challenge on, that the transport sector has to decarbonize and B, contribute to cleaning up the air, what do you see that are you seeing progress in the adoption of sustainable mobility? Are you seeing that the evidence around new energy vehicles or the policies that are coming are being absorbed at the public level? And what are the possible barriers that are still in place that we need to get rid of and to ensure that we have cleaner air in our cities?
Thank you, Davar. First of all, I would like to thank Dawn Media Group for organizing this conference. Thank you, Davar. I would like to offer our gratitude to Dawn Media Group for organizing this conference, and it's heartening to see how Breathe Pakistan is making waves, and Alhamdulillah, growing bigger than ever. Coming to your question, so first of all, we need to understand the concept of EVs is actually driven by a much bigger. So when our group, HRL Engineering, our chairman, Mr. Zaid Rafiq, he came up with the idea of actually stepping in to coming up and developing the first smart cities of Pakistan. Those go by name of Capital Smart City and Lahore Smart City. So at that point of time, he was very clear about the notion that it has to be part of the whole ecosystem. So transportation is the lifeline of our cities, but today it is also one of the biggest contributors to air pollution, oil dependency, and greenhouse gas emissions. Across Asia, we see the consequences that includes smog choking Lahore, heat waves crippling Karachi, and of course the rising fuel costs, the destabilizing economies across, from Sri Lanka to Bangladesh. The recent war scenarios and tensions in the region have shown us how fragile oil supply chains are. Every shock translates into higher costs for our people and greater vulnerability for our government. That being said, right now, if we speak about some of the statistics globally, 1 in 5 new cars is now electric, and in Asia, countries like Vietnam and Singapore are already at 40% EV penetration. Meanwhile, as rightly said, Pakistan's transport sector emits nearly 40 million tons of carbon dioxide annually, choking our cities with smog and heat. The recent oil crisis has showed how fragile our dependency is, and 20% of total global oil supply was disrupted, sending prices soaring. EVs cut this dependency, deliver cleaner air, and align us with the global climate commitments. New energy vehicles, whether pure EVs or range extended EVs, offer a pathway out of this cycle. They reduce emissions to near zero, cut our reliance on imported oil, and align Pakistan with global climate commitments. Now, it is important to understand that categorizing EVs separately from hybrids or PHEVs or conventional ICE internal combustion engine platforms is not about undermining any players. It is about clarity, and it will allow policymakers to incentivize the cleanest technologies while still supporting transitional ones. So this distinction is critical if we want to leapfrog into a future where our cities are breathable, our energy is local, and our mobility is resilient. Thank you.
Thank you, Farooq. I think all of the speakers so far have, pointed out challenges and various aspects of the urban life that are going to be critical, especially in the context of the global south. And perhaps Dr. Noman is the right person to help us close off this discussion. Dr. Noman, one of the things, I think we discussed this earlier as well, it's a very difficult question to put forth to you, but I always think about the city as a mix of a lot of things, and our cities have a particular recipe to it. What needs to be changed in the recipe to ensure that our cities can manage the impending risks and accommodate the people of Pakistan and for every other country their own people? This is, I think, the key challenge. So it needs to be a vision outlined eventually, but for now, what would you think about the three main things that would you do in our cities for making sure that we take on the challenge of mitigation and adaptation?
Thank you, Davar, and thanks to the Dawn Media Group and the organizers of Breathe Pakistan conference. It's a very loaded question, and I think the kind of rich discussion that we had that preceded this particular comment, I think that needs to be put in perspective. Briefly, I think in Pakistan, we need to see the overall picture of urbanization very objectively. As Sumaira was pointing out about the trends of migrations that this country has seen, it will be important to remember that Pakistan is urbanizing fast, faster than we believe and possibly imagine. Our official figures say that we are 36% urban, but that only talks about the type of cities, locations, and towns that we categorize as urban, whereas the urban footprint in many ways is far greater. And one very specific reason as to why this happens is that we let our cities sprawl and enter into locations, into hinterland that are not supposed to be urbanized. So managing boundaries and obviously managing the overall urban sprawl is a very important factor that we need to take into account, given the fact that 56% of the entire urban population of Pakistan lives in the 10 largest cities of this country. Now, this is a very startling figure given the fact that we have over 550 cities of various sizes. But the largest cities of Pakistan are basically shouldering the load of urbanization in an extraordinary manner. And these are the cities that are under enormous amount of duress, and that is what we have to safeguard. So Karachi, Lahore, Faistabad, and all the larger cities of Pakistan are experiencing an extraordinary scale of sprawl. And this sprawl is manifesting itself into a very haphazard type of urbanization, because somehow we are not able to manage the hinterland and obviously safeguard the very precious farming territories that are there in the case of, say, Lahore and other cities, and the coastal locations and other natural bodies that need to be safeguarded and prevented from utilizing for mundane purposes. The second consideration that we need to take into account, and that is for within the cities, is that our designated public spaces, whether active or passive, have to be safeguarded, because these public spaces are the repositories of managing climate change, be it parks, playgrounds, or the passive green belts. They have to be very religiously safeguarded, because most of them are basically, in fact, transformed and experience a change of status that is completely undesirable. Look at the bus rapid transit projects that are being implemented in Karachi. Each one of them is basically built upon the green belts, which are now gone. And more are going to go as we see more infrastructural projects of that kind implemented. So if we have to introduce new infrastructure, and especially the infrastructure of mobility, we have to very carefully see that what are the available land options through which they can be implemented, and whether it is absolutely necessary to alter the status of existing public open spaces, especially the green belts. Thirdly, I think it is extremely important to look at the plight of the urban poor in accessing land. In many cases, the urban poor who exist in our cities, especially large cities, have no access to land. And in that situation, they either, in fact, resort to various types of extremely vulnerable locations like riverbanks or the locations under high tension wires or all the other type of most hazardous location where no one would actually go. These are the people who become the fodder for climate change impacts whenever it strikes. So whether it is urban flooding, whether it is a heat wave, or whether it is any other similar type of situation that strikes the cities, the urban poor becomes the first victims, and that these are the people who we are supposed to safeguard. We must acknowledge the fact that because of the various types of other changes and impacts happening in our rural hinterland, the livelihoods and opportunities of survival for the poor is diminishing. And many of these people simply resort to cities for the purpose of their survival. But when they reach the cities, new realities, rather stark realities, are there to welcome them. And as a consequence of that, instead of getting a survival, they mostly live in extremely precarious situations. And in most of the cases, their plight is not, in fact, acknowledged or analyzed into any kind of policies that we see. What they come across are ruthless evictions, or in many cases, other types of similar actions, often undertaken under the fancy name of anti-encroachment. But in most of these cases, the anti-encroachments are anti-poor operations because we do not see the houses of the rich obliterated. They get regularized whenever they get into power or we get the privilege of getting the laws twisted to their favor. So I believe that it is important that when we discuss climate change, we also see that what kind of impacts it is causing on poor, especially urban poor, and how they can possibly be safeguarded by the right type of policy and plan intervention actions that possibly a conference like this would be able to, in fact, contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noman. And I think everyone has pointed out our issues: limited finance, weak institutions, informality. But at the same time, there's a lot of opportunity. We are seeing technology, we are seeing data and evidence come in. So we can potentially leapfrog, create better urban design, compact, sustainable environments, and make sure they're inclusive. So perhaps those are the key learnings from this session. And with that, I would like to conclude and thank all my speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you to our esteemed speakers. Can I please request you all for a group photograph? And can we please have a huge round of applause for these individuals who've taken out the time to be here today?